You believe you know exactly where MH370 is?
That's correct, yes.
So from the moment MH370 took off, you have been able to track its every movement?
Yeah, from takeoff right to the end.
He claims to have pinpointed MH370 in a hidden trench far deeper and more remote than anyone imagined. But if his analysis is correct, the implications stretch beyond science. Was this tragedy an accident or the perfect crime? Tonight, we reveal what the footage truly uncovers: the vanishing and the trail. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, a Boeing 777-200ER, departed Kuala Lumpur International Airport bound for Beijing at 12:41 a.m. local time. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members, representing more than a dozen nationalities, including 153 Chinese citizens. The flight was routine, carrying families returning home, business travelers, and tourists. Among the passengers were 2 Iranian men traveling on stolen passports, a detail that would initially fuel terrorism speculation, but later proved unrelated to the disappearance. The crew, led by Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a veteran pilot with over 18,000 flight hours, and First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid, were experienced professionals with spotless records. At 1:19 a.m., as the aircraft passed from Malaysian to Vietnamese air traffic control, Captain Zahari issued the final transmission: "Good night, Malaysian 370. His voice was calm, routine, betraying no hint of distress. Immediately after, the aircraft's transponder stopped transmitting, erasing it from civilian radar. This was not a gradual failure, but an abrupt disappearance, as if someone had flipped a switch. Within moments, the Boeing 777 became invisible to air traffic controllers in both Malaysia and Vietnam, vanishing from their screens without explanation or warning. Military radar later revealed MH370 executed a deliberate westward turn across the Malay Peninsula toward the Andaman Sea. This deviation was not consistent with mechanical failure, but rather a precise maneuver requiring manual override of autopilot systems. The aircraft flew back across Malaysian airspace, passing near Penang Island, where Captain Zahari had grown up and learned to fly. Investigators noted that the shutoff of both the transponder and the Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, ACARS, demanded deliberate human action, requiring knowledge of the aircraft's systems and access to cockpit controls. No passenger could have accomplished this without overpowering the flight crew. The aircraft continued westward before vanishing into unmonitored airspace. For the next 7 hours, its only trace came from 7 automated satellite handshakes with an Inmarsat communications satellite. These handshakes, known as pings, were routine communication attempts between the aircraft's satellite data unit and the Inmarsat 3F1 satellite orbiting over the Indian Ocean. The pings provided no information about the aircraft's condition, crew status, or intentions, only that the plane remained airborne and powered. Engineers analyzed the Doppler shift in these signals to determine the aircraft was moving south, but the arcs spanned millions of square miles, producing a search field the size of the continental United States. The disappearance triggered the largest and most expensive search in aviation history. Over 120,000 kilometer-rounds of seafloor were scanned between 2014 and 2017 under the supervision of the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, ATSB. Ships from multiple nations deployed deep-sea sonar equipment, scanning underwater mountains, trenches, and plains in treacherous conditions. The official investigation concluded that the aircraft's path was manually altered, but it could not identify a motive or perpetrator. Despite years of operations and hundreds of millions of dollars spent, no wreckage was recovered in the designated zones. The search became a symbol of both international cooperation and frustration, as families demanded answers that investigators could not provide. Only scattered debris, most notably a flaperon discovered on Réunion Island in July 2015, was definitively linked to MH370. This confirmed an Indian Ocean crash, but failed to reveal the crash site or cause. Over the following years, more than 30 pieces of debris washed ashore across the western Indian Ocean, from South Africa to Madagascar to Mauritius. Each fragment was analyzed for serial numbers, barnacle growth patterns, and structural damage, painting a picture of violent impact, but offering no clues to the aircraft's final resting place. The absence of black boxes left investigators with conjecture, speculation, and theories ranging from pilot suicide to state-sponsored hijacking.
So if we were to send a search party out there now, they'd be able to find it?
It will only take one more search, and we will find it.
Enter Richard Godfrey, a British aerospace engineer with a background at NASA, Airbus, and Boeing. Unlike government investigators who relied on radar tracking and underwater sonar, Godfrey turned to an unconventional source: amateur radio signals. He studied the Weak Signal Propagation Reporter (WSPR) network, a global constellation of amateur radio transmissions originally designed to measure how far low-power signals can travel through Earth's atmosphere. This network, maintained by thousands of hobbyist radio operators worldwide, continuously logs signal strength, timing, and propagation paths. No one had previously considered WSPR data as a tool for tracking aircraft, but Godfrey recognized its potential as an unintended surveillance system. The WSPR network functions as a planet-scale tripwire. Tens of thousands of operators transmit faint signals across long distances, creating an invisible web of radio waves crisscrossing the globe. These signals are easily disrupted by natural events like solar flares or weather fronts, but also by massive metallic objects moving at high speed through the ionosphere. Godfrey theorized that MH370's 200-foot fuselage and engine exhaust disrupted WSPR transmissions on the night of March 8, 2014. Each time the aircraft's metal body intersected a radio signal path, it would create a measurable disturbance, a momentary weakening or disruption of the transmission. By analyzing thousands of these disturbances, Godfrey believed he could reconstruct the aircraft's flight path with unprecedented precision.
I'm looking to try and detect anomalies in the signals reflected back from an aircraft. You can follow that data and you can see where an aircraft may have disturbed the radio signals, and you can pick up those disturbances.
He collected 20,000 signal anomalies logged globally that night. By filtering out natural interference and unrelated flights, Godfrey isolated 150 disturbances consistent with MH370's location, speed, and altitude. Each disturbance marked a point where the aircraft's body intersected a WSPR signal path. The work required painstaking analysis, cross-referencing signal times with satellite data, weather patterns, and known flight paths of other aircraft in the region. Critics questioned whether WSPR signals, designed for measuring radio propagation rather than tracking objects, could provide reliable positional data. But Godfrey's methodology was rigorous, applying statistical filters and independent verification to ensure the anomalies matched MH370's expected trajectory. The analysis revealed a chilling trajectory. After deviating from its planned course, MH370 executed a twisting path designed to skirt radar boundaries of Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. This was not random wandering, but a calculated effort to evade detection. The aircraft flew along the edges of national airspace, exploiting gaps in radar coverage where military installations faced inward rather than seaward. More alarming was evidence of a holding pattern over the Indian Ocean. For approximately 90 minutes, MH370 looped in a racetrack formation, a maneuver only possible under conscious pilot control. No emergency scenario explains such behavior in the middle of the open ocean. Pilots enter holding patterns when awaiting landing clearance or managing air traffic delays, never while flying over remote waters thousands of miles from any airport. This implied not only that the pilot was alive and in control, but that he deliberately prolonged the flight before turning south. Some analysts suggested the holding pattern indicated hesitation, a final internal debate before committing to the fatal dive. Others believed it was a deliberate strategy to burn fuel, ensuring the aircraft would sink quickly upon impact rather than floating on the surface where it might be discovered. The psychological implications were profound. Whoever controlled MH370 in those final hours possessed both the technical skill to fly undetected across international boundaries and the resolve to execute a plan that would end 239 lives.
How can you be so sure that it was a plane, that it was MH370 that disturbed these radio frequencies?
It's very easy because out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, there was just one other aircraft in several hours that passed, and that passed an hour's flying time away from MH370. So
Godfrey's reconstructed path intersected precisely with the Inmarsat arcs, confirming consistency between two independent datasets. While Inmarsat offered only vast corridors, WSPR provided dot-to-dot coordinates across the ocean. His work transformed vague arcs into a concrete trajectory. The WSPR Ghost Trail ended in a mountainous trench of the southern Indian Ocean, around 2,200 miles west of Perth, Australia. This location sits slightly north north of areas previously scanned during the ATSB-led operation, possibly explaining why earlier missions failed. The seabed in this region is characterized by rugged terrain, underwater mountains, and deep valleys that challenge even the most sophisticated sonar equipment. If MH370 crashed into one of these valleys, it could remain hidden beneath sediment and debris for decades. Debris drift simulations aligned with this site. Fragments that later washed ashore in Africa and Madagascar could be explained by currents from Godfrey's proposed crash zone. Oceanographers modeled how lightweight aircraft components would drift westward across the Indian Ocean, carried by prevailing currents and seasonal winds. The timing and locations of debris discoveries matched predictions based on Godfrey's coordinates, lending credibility to his analysis. In 2021, Godfrey published a 200-page technical report. He argued MH370 was never lost. Its electromagnetic shadow had always existed in WSPR data. His crash. Coordinates fell within the 7th arc, a region repeatedly scrutinized but never penetrated with high-resolution autonomous underwater vehicles. The aviation establishment responded with skepticism. ATSB officials warned that WSPR disturbances could be explained by ionospheric conditions, natural radio noise, or other aircraft. Accepting Godfrey's model meant acknowledging that millions of dollars and years of official searches had been misdirected. The deep hole and the pilot. In August 2024, a new claim shook the investigation. Dr. Vincent Line, a retired Australian oceanographer and adjunct researcher at the University of Tasmania's Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies, published a LinkedIn essay titled "Mystery of MH370 Solved by Science." Line argued that the missing Boeing 777 rests at the bottom of an uncharted underwater depression in the southern Indian Ocean, which he called the Penang Longitude Deep Hole. His announcement reignited global interest in the case, drawing both excitement from families desperate for closure and skepticism from aviation experts wary of sensational claims. His hypothesis diverged from Richard Godfrey's electromagnetic trail analysis, but arrived at the same haunting conclusion. MH370 did not crash chaotically. It was deliberately placed in a remote geological trench to ensure concealment. Line's approach combined bathymetric seafloor mapping, JEBCO data, sonar imaging, and drift analysis of recovered debris. While reviewing global bathymetric terrain models in March 2025, Line identified a solitary bright yellow pixel in the otherwise uniform ocean floor imagery at coordinates 33.02 Tari Prux, 100.7 degree, roughly 2,500 kilometers west of Perth, Australia. This pixel, barely noticeable in the vast blue expanse of ocean floor data, represented an anomaly in depth measurements that Line believed warranted investigation. The anomaly corresponded to a trench approximately 5,750 to 6,000 meters deep on the eastern slope of the Broken Ridge, an ancient volcanic plateau scarred with steep cliffs and sediment-filled gullies. The Broken Ridge is a geological remnant from millions of years of tectonic activity, creating a rugged underwater landscape of mountains and valleys. Line suggested the depression was narrow, just wide enough to engulf the wingspan of a Boeing 777 and deep enough to trap wreckage indefinitely. At such depths, water pressure exceeds 600 atmospheres, enough to crush unprotected equipment and make recovery operations extraordinarily challenging. He argued this location was deliberately chosen as a perfect hiding spot, a geological black hole where currents are minimal and debris dispersal is unlikely. This explained why, after more than a decade of global searching, only a handful of lightweight components, such as the flaperon on Réunion Island, had reached distant shores. Line also highlighted structural evidence from debris. Damage to the flaperon and other recovered fragments, he argued, reflected a low-impact water ditching rather than a high-velocity plunge. The flaperon's trailing edge showed damage consistent with being lowered during a controlled descent, suggesting the pilot attempted to manage the aircraft's final moments. In his view, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah executed a deliberate, controlled descent comparable to US Airways Flight 1549, the Miracle on the Hudson, in 2009. However, unlike Captain Sullenberger's successful emergency landing, Zahari's ditching occurred in darkness, over open ocean, with no intention of survival. The comparison underscored the technical mastery required to bring a crippled or fuel-depleted aircraft down without catastrophic breakup. Zahari's home flight simulator contained data simulating a flight path into the southern Indian Ocean. While dismissed by the FBI as irrelevant, Line saw this as a roadmap. The simulator data, recovered from deleted files on Zahari's home computer, showed a route that terminated in the southern Indian Ocean with fuel exhaustion. Investigators at the time argued the simulation was incomplete, possibly part of a casual experiment rather than evidence of premeditation. But Line and others saw eerie parallels between the simulated route and MH370's actual downhill trajectory, suggesting Zahari may have rehearsed the disappearance weeks or months in advance. The longitude of Line's coordinates, 100.27 degree, aligns symbolically with the runway axis of Penang International Airport, Zahari's hometown terminal. Line suggested this signature indicated intent. Penang held deep personal significance for Zahari, who had spent his childhood there and maintained strong emotional ties to the region. By selecting a crash site aligned with Penang's longitude, Zahari may have been leaving a final cryptic message, a geographic tombstone visible only to those who understood the symbolism. This interpretation, while compelling, remains speculative, as no evidence directly links Zahari's psychological state to the choice of crash location. Like Godfrey before him, Line's claim ignited fierce debate. Aviation experts welcomed innovative thinking, but stressed that no peer-reviewed evidence confirmed the bright pixel represented aircraft debris. Bathymetric anomalies can result from data artifacts, noise, or natural rock formations. Low-resolution seafloor mapping often produces false positives, where shadows, sediment layers, or volcanic features appear as anomalies. Critics noted that Line's coordinates overlapped partially with Ocean Infinity's 15,000-kilometer search zone launched in February 2025, but with a 200-kilometer offset. This meant that unless Ocean Infinity specifically probed the narrow trench, Line's theory could remain untested. At the center of both Godfrey and Line's theories lies the same conclusion: pilot intent. Line described Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah as a mastermind pilot who meticulously designed a vanishing act. By disabling communications, executing sharp deviations, and selecting a trench aligned with his hometown's runway, Zahari transformed MH370's disappearance into what Line called a perfect crime of concealment. This reinforced the murder-suicide hypothesis, long debated but never officially confirmed. In 2020, former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott declared publicly that senior Malaysian officials believed from very early on that Zahari hijacked his own plane. Abbott's comments, made years after leaving office, suggested that political sensitivities prevented Malaysian authorities from publicly endorsing the pilot suicide theory, despite private convictions. The transponder and ACAR's shutdowns were deliberate. The flight simulator evidence pointed south. The holding pattern identified by Godfrey indicated control, not mechanical failure. However, counter-arguments persist. Zahari was an experienced, respected pilot with no known extremist ties. His family and peers insist he showed no suicidal tendencies. Colleagues described him as passionate about aviation, politically engaged but not radicalized, and devoted to his family despite recent marital difficulties. Some experts argue that without black boxes, suicide cannot be proven, and alternative explanations, such as fire, depressurization, or hijacking, remain viable. The absence of a suicide note or manifesto leaves the motive forever uncertain. Despite this resistance, both theories have pressured governments into action. Ocean Infinity's renewed 2025 search, backed by Malaysia under a no-find, no-fee deal worth up to $70 million, reflects the persistence of independent science in keeping the MH370 investigation alive. Line's deep hole theory reframes MH370 not as an unsolvable mystery, but as an engineered disappearance, where a pilot exploited geological features to erase evidence. Conspiracies, legacy, and the search continues. The phrase, "new footage inside the plane before the crash changes everything," continues to circulate online more than a decade after MH370 disappeared. Yet, as of September 2025, no verified video from inside the cabin has ever surfaced. Instead, the viral clips that fuel this phrase trace back to fabricated videos that appeared on YouTube and forums as early as 2014. The most infamous of these videos depicts a commercial airliner, allegedly MH370, surrounded by 3 glowing orbs. The orbs appear to circle the plane before a sudden flash, after which the aircraft vanishes. Proponents claim the footage was captured by a US military satellite or drone, citing purported military classification codes visible in the corner of the frame, but analysis reveals clear CGI artifact, mismatched frame rate, fluid dynamics inconsistent with real smoke, and visual elements traced to pre-2014 stock footage. Professional video forensic analysts demonstrated that the orbs were digitally inserted, the aircraft silhouette was lifted from promotional Boeing materials, and the background was composed from unrelated military training exercises. Despite repeated debunking, these clips re-emerged in August and September 2025, amplified on X, formerly Twitter, by accounts linking them to recent UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena, hearings in the US Congress. Some users claimed the footage aligned with testimony about unknown technology, and speculated that MH370 had been abducted by non-human intelligence. The resurgence coincided with renewed public public interest in unexplained aerial phenomena as congressional hearings explored reports of military encounters with unidentified objects. Conspiracy theorists drew tenuous connections between these hearings and MH370, suggesting a coordinated effort to conceal evidence of extraterrestrial involvement in the disappearance. Authorities have consistently dismissed these videos. The Malaysian Ministry of Transport, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, ATSB, and Boeing state no authenticated footage exists. The viral clips lack metadata, chain of custody, or any satellite corroboration. They are, by every professional measure, hoaxes. Aviation security experts note that if such footage existed, it would have emerged through official channels rather than anonymous uploads to conspiracy forums. Books such as Flight MH370 by Nigel Cawthorne argue MH370 may have been accidentally downed by a missile and covered up. Critics note no missile debris has been recovered, and Inmarsat data shows prolonged flight after disappearance. Some theorists claim MH370 was diverted to the US military base on Diego Garcia for espionage or to capture sensitive cargo. No evidence supports this claim. The case of MH370 has become emblematic of how lack of evidence breeds conspiracy. With no cockpit voice recorder, no flight data recorder, and no main wreckage, speculation thrives. Netflix's MH370, the plane that disappeared, 2023, presented scenarios ranging from hijacking to military shootdown, drawing both acclaim and criticism for prioritizing narrative over evidence. The documentary interviewed families, investigators, and conspiracy theorists, giving equal weight to evidence-based analysis and speculative theories. While engaging viewers, this approach frustrated aviation experts who felt it legitimized unfounded claims. The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines. Flight MH370 is not only a question of aviation science, but also one of human grief, political accountability, and systemic reform. The loss of 239 lives reverberated far beyond the southern Indian Ocean, reshaping aviation law, international relations, and the lives of thousands left behind. From the earliest days of the disappearance, families of MH370 passengers accused Malaysia Airlines and the Malaysian government of mishandling communications and withholding information. In Beijing, where the majority of victims were Chinese nationals, relatives clashed with Malaysian officials during press conferences. Angry confrontations, broadcast globally, revealed the depth of frustration and distrust that characterized the early investigation. Over the years, families organized vigils in Kuala Lumpur, Beijing, and Perth. They formed advocacy groups such as Voice 370, which continues to pressure governments for renewed searches. Their activism directly influenced Malaysia's 2024 decision to contract Ocean Infinity for another mission. For many, financial compensation mattered less than locating wreckage and recovering remains. The absence of closure prolonged psychological trauma, with some relatives still holding out hope that survivors exist. Annual commemorations mark the anniversary of the disappearance, where families gather to remember loved ones and demand continued investigation. The handling of MH370 exposed fractures between Malaysia, China, Australia, and the United States. Malaysia's slow release of radar and satellite data fueled suspicion that officials were hiding the truth. China, with 153 citizens aboard, accused Malaysia of incompetence and obstruction. MH370 forced aviation authorities to confront a disturbing fact. A modern jetliner could vanish without a trace in the age of satellites. In 2016, the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, adopted new standards requiring aircraft to report location at least every 15 minutes. From 2021 onward, new aircraft must carry tamper-proof tracking systems capable of transmitting real-time data. Black boxes must emit locator signals for 90 days instead of 30. These reforms represented the aviation industry's acknowledgement that existing safety protocols had failed catastrophically. When aircraft vanish, other unsolved disappearances. While Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 is the most infamous modern disappearance, it is not the only case where an airliner, its passengers, and crew seemingly vanished into thin air. History is marked by several other incidents where planes carrying dozens or even hundreds of people disappeared without conclusive explanations. These cases span decades, continents, and technologies, underscoring the vulnerabilities of aviation and fueling speculation long before MH370. Each disappearance shares common elements: vast search areas, limited debris recovery, and families left without closure. Together, they form a haunting pattern that challenges our assumption that modern technology has conquered the unknown. On August 2nd, 1947, British South American Airways flight Stardust, an Avro Lancastrian, departed Buenos Aires en route to Santiago, Chile. The aircraft vanished over the Andes with 11 people on board. Its last transmission to Santiago Air Traffic Control was a cryptic Morse code message, "Stendek." The transmission was repeated 3 times with increasing urgency before the aircraft fell silent. For decades, the disappearance was unsolved. Linguists, codebreakers, and aviation experts attempted to decipher Stendek, proposing interpretations ranging from corrupted distress signals to deliberate coded messages. Some speculated sabotage, others suggested alien abduction, owing to the strange Stendek code, which was never deciphered. The mystery captivated the public imagination, inspiring novels and conspiracy theories. It was not until 1998 that climbers discovered wreckage on Mount Tupungato, buried beneath decades of ice and snow. Investigators concluded the aircraft flew directly into a glacier, likely due to navigational error and poor weather. The Andes' unpredictable conditions, combined with primitive navigation equipment, proved fatal, but the message "Stendek" remains unexplained, ensuring Stardust retains its aura of mystery. Some researchers believe it was a garbled attempt to transmit coordinates or weather conditions, while others maintain it represents a transmission error caused by equipment malfunction. The discovery of wreckage answered where Stardust crashed, but left the question of Stendek forever unresolved. On March 16, 1962, flying Tiger Line Flight 739, a Lockheed Super Constellation carrying 93 U.S. soldiers and 11 crew, disappeared over the Pacific while traveling from Guam to the Philippines. The soldiers were being redeployed to Vietnam, part of the escalating U.S. military presence in Southeast Asia. No distress call was received. Search teams covering more than 200,000 square miles found no debris. Witnesses on a nearby tanker reported seeing a bright flash in the sky, leading to speculation of mid-air explosion. The tanker's crew described seeing an orange glow on the horizon, followed by silence, suggesting a catastrophic event rather than a gradual descent. To this day, no wreckage has been found. It remains the single largest aviation disappearance of U.S. military personnel in history. Families of the soldiers received no bodies to bury, no personal effects to treasure, only the official notification that their loved ones were presumed dead. The lack of evidence spawned theories ranging from enemy action to onboard sabotage. Though no evidence supported any hypothesis, the case remains open, a Cold War mystery that may never be solved. On June 24, 1968, Aer Lingus Flight 712, a Vickers Viscount turboprop, took off from London bound for Dublin. 20 minutes into the flight, the aircraft vanished from radar while flying over the Irish Sea, carrying 57 people. The flight was routine, carrying Irish businessmen returning from London, meetings, tourists, and families. Weather conditions were favorable, and the crew experienced. Searchers recovered only a cushion and oil slicks. Theories ranged from mid-air structural failure to bird strike, but the sparse debris prevented definitive conclusions. The Irish Sea, though relatively shallow compared to oceanic depths, proved treacherous for recovery operations. Strong currents and poor visibility hampered efforts to locate the main wreckage. The Irish government eventually classified the case as an accident, but uncertainty persists due to the absence of wreckage. Some researchers believe the aircraft suffered catastrophic structural failure, possibly due to metal fatigue, while others point to unexplained radar anomalies suggesting mid-air collision. On January 30, 1979, a Varig Boeing 707 cargo flight traveling from Tokyo to Rio de Janeiro vanished with 6 crew. The plane was carrying valuable paintings by Japanese artist Manabu Mabe, works valued at millions of dollars and destined for exhibition in Brazil. Despite extensive searches across the Pacific, no wreckage or cargo was ever recovered. The absence of passengers minimized media coverage, but the complete loss of aircraft and priceless artwork has fueled theories ranging from hijacking to deliberate theft. Some speculated that the crew diverted the aircraft to sell the artwork, though no evidence of the paintings ever surfaced on the black market. Others believe the aircraft suffered mechanical failure over the vast Pacific, sinking without trace into one of the ocean's deepest trenches. The mystery endures, a footnote in aviation history that symbolizes how even valuable cargo and experienced crews offer no immunity to disappearance. On May 2, 1969, ALM Antillean Airlines Flight 980, a Douglas DC-9, ditched in the Caribbean Sea after fuel exhaustion. Of the 63 people on board, 40 were rescued, but 23 vanished into the sea and were never recovered. The aircraft had been diverted multiple times due to bad weather, burning through fuel reserves before the pilot attempted an emergency water landing. Survivors described the terrifying moments as the aircraft struck the water, breaking apart, lost on impact. Although not a complete disappearance like MH370, the partial loss of passengers highlights how ditching accidents in remote seas often leave little evidence. Bodies were swept away by currents, never to be found, despite extensive search operations. The incident underscored the dangers of overwater flights in an era before modern navigation and fuel management systems. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.